Thanks for having me. Listen, I'm super excited, Tyson, to have a chat with you.
This is going to be fun. What happened is I saw, I can't remember, it was a podiatry page on Facebook. Somebody made a comment about
Yes.
something, and then you had made a comment,
Yes.
and I can't remember what your comment was. And I went,
I know.
"You're in South America? What are you doing in South America? What are you doing traveling?" I went, "This has
Ah,
to be interesting." So let's start on the David Karamanis story. First, why podiatry? What got you into podiatry in the first place?
you know what? I was doing a teaching, sort of like exercise health science. I was a personal trainer for many years. I did exercise health science at uni. Actually, never wanted to go to uni. Never thought I could go to uni.
Yeah.
Didn't think I was smart enough. And then I made me realize that, teaching sucks for me. I was like, you know what, this is not what I want to do. But it made me realize that I was interested in biomechanics and I was interested in anatomy. And then I met a cool podiatrist who just finished at my gym, and she opened my eyes to podiatry. And then I
What
watched
made her
a,
cool? I'm curious. What made that
oh, okay,
podiatrist cool?
because we're talking like this. It was
Yeah.
just, she made me laugh. She was very down to earth. And I was like, she's a cool girl. So,
Okay.
yeah, she was very open, told me everything she liked about podiatry
She was a normal
and the things
person.
that's a normal
Yeah.
person. Because sometimes you don't get normal people these days.
No,
So,
no,
um, she told me the bad things and all that sort of stuff. And I watched a TED Talk. Have you heard of TED Talks?
no. Now, of course,
Okay.
I've heard of TED Talks.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
No, a lot of people haven't. A lot of people haven't.
Serious. People haven't heard. I
What's
suppose, yeah, if they live under a rock.
usually that's me. But I heard a TED Talk. So I watched a TED Talk and
Yeah.
it said how to be satisfied in your job and in life. And long story short, if you hit these three things where you master in a skill, you have continual problem solving. If something's too hard, you get discouraged. If something's too easy, you get bored.
Yeah.
And if you can, what was the third one now? Master skill. You can have autonomy. So you make your own decisions. After I watched that, I was like, you know what? What she said and what this TED Talk said, podiatry, this looks like it's for me. And then I just had to go. And I got through.
And you got through and you did it.
I made it.
Okay. So,
Yeah.
so you finished podiatry. You did podiatry in Sydney. Once you finished podiatry, started working, did you realize you'd made the right decision?
Once I was doing the degree, I found it interesting.
Yeah.
Once I started working, I was like, yes, I actually really enjoy this. It's very interesting. But to be honest, because remember, during the pandemic, I was like, I was still working during the pandemic, very blessed to still have a job when people didn't. I was working at a private practice, had a great mentor program with my boss, got on really well with my boss. He was very like us, just having a chat and laughing. But I learned so much from him. But it just got to a point where I just started to feel not satisfied or not purely fulfilled. I'm quite an adventurous person. I've
Yeah.
traveled over the last 10 years. I've traveled to different countries like Pakistan and India and all these different places. And I was like, oh, I can suppress that feeling, but I knew I wouldn't be satisfied in the long term if I just didn't follow this desire to go overseas.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I learned a lot about myself.
It does. But to me, that makes a lot of sense. And I see people do that all the time where they keep telling themselves, whether it's podiatry or something else, that they try and fit themselves into they're a square peg and they're trying to put themselves in a round hole to stay there, and all of a sudden they realize, no, you've got to be a square peg. You've got to go and do what actually feels and fits right.
I was in this sports clinic, and I obviously won't name names, but the great sports podiatrist. He was my sports podiatrist. I looked up to him. He's an amazing person, but he's so busy. He's booked out like months and months and months in advance. Anyway, I saw him in the bathroom and I said, listen, I'm not following you. And he said, listen. And we're having a toilet talk, and I was
Yes, you
saying
do.
to him, as you do, and I was saying to him, man, you're so busy. And he goes like, Dave, don't worry. One day you'll be like me. And in my head, I'm like, I don't want to, like, I respect you. I don't want to be anything like you. Just, he could not take time out to go on a holiday if he wanted to.
Yeah.
Like, he would struggle to take a sick day if he had to. And it just made me realize, you know what, like, I don't know if this is exactly for me. I worked at a clinic where my bosses did a lot with professional soccer teams, professional athletes. So I was very blessed to have that exposure. But it made me realize that I didn't really enjoy getting people better in their performance. Like
Yeah.
I'm a personal trainer background, so I did that for many years. But what really encouraged me was when I treated this one guy who fell under a train when he was a young guy and had a lot of deformity in his leg and just struggled to walk generally and had a lot of pain. I got my boss to help me with some customized orthotics because they make it on the computer and like
Yeah.
actually make it. And within 6 weeks, he was mostly because he already had two orthotics before then. Terrible, wasted a lot of money, had not much faith in what I was doing, but he gave it one more go. And within 6 weeks, he had decreased his pain significantly. A year later, had no pain, ordered another set, everything. And I was just like, wow, like he goes, you have significantly helped me function so much better. And it just made me realize, like, yes, helping people function better was my thing, or I'm a bit more interested in.
But I think there's a fine line too between when you're working and you're helping people, and then the business side of things can sometimes take over. And if you're the business owner with the business hat on, you end up like the person you spoke about, where you're that busy, and you sort of think, oh, everyone wants to be like me, and you don't realize, no, some of your employees are looking at you going, my God, I'm glad I don't own this business.
Yeah, no, listen, I
I'm sure they happen. I'm sure they happen with some of the people who used to work with me. I tell you, there were some times I look back at the hours we were doing and what we were achieving out of it all. But I eventually, I just started stepping back and just doing what I enjoyed doing and taking more time off and traveling more. Travel's good.
listen, from a young age, I really knew that, okay, I see myself sitting at a table when I'm 50 years old and I have one friend that owns a business, very successful, and I'll be like, well done, that's so amazing. I'll look at another friend who's got all these different properties. I'm like, fantastic, you made some great decisions. I'll look at someone else who, may have, I don't know, be doing something else who's successful in his area. But for me, I'm okay with not having those things as long as I have a lot of experiences. I want to be sitting there at 50 years old and say, you know what, I don't have all these things, but I have all these valuable experiences. And that's what's really valuable to me.
I guess so. 50 is not very old. It's
yeah,
like just
no,
I'm
it's
just
a
saying.
milestone. It's a
Yeah, it is.
milestone.
Yeah, it's like your halfway mark.
Not halfway. So I'm at my halfway mark. I really want to be rich with experiences. And it made me realize that, you know what? I love Australia, beautiful country, but there's a world out there that I really want to discover. And as I said, I've been traveling, here and there for a long time. But it was until I was reading a book in the pandemic and it talked about your life and purpose. And obviously, I won't go too deep with you, but it made me realize, it basically said, don't push away those daydreams that you have consistently throughout your life. Not just like last month or last week, but there's things that resurface over and over again. And it made me realize I have this deep desire to live overseas.
Yeah.
And I was like, cool. Like, this is me going. I love hiking. I'd hike to my favorite place, 3 hours on top of this mountain. I'd sit there with my book and pen and I would ask all these questions to myself, what do I want to be known for? When I leave this earth, what do I want to have done? What things do I desire? What are my daydreams? What things do I do so much that I forget to eat because I'm so involved in it? And all these super deep questions are hard to answer. And then you concise it together. I was like, wow, I put this little vision on my back of my wall. Listen, if you walked into my room at home in Australia, you would think I'm a psychopath because I had like quotes and words all around my world.
As long as you don't have pieces of string going from and people's photographs and all that, and dead bodies and crime scenes,
and a dartboard.
Then you're a sicko. But other than that, the rest of it's fine.
So yeah, I had this on the back of my wall and basically said, and I did it for 2 years, but the closest one was, I want to travel. I'm just trying to remember. I want to travel to high-risk developing countries and be part of a team of people that help solve solutions in these communities and provide services they cannot access. Something like that. That's just me thinking, I'm trying to remember. But I was like, you know what? I'm probably living that as close as I am today. And I at that same time when I realized I want to live overseas, I'm a single man. I'm 33. I've been a single. I've dated myself for a very long time. But I went. It sounds silly, but I went on like a little dating app, and I'm always totally against it. But my friend was like, "Dave, you're 30, you're 31, you've got nothing, so
Yeah.
go and talk to people during the pandemic. Just meet new people." So I went on there, met a great girl, fantastic girl, but it made me realize that I have a great friend who I met in Ecuador, South America.
Yeah.
And I was like, we talk regularly. She's a great friend. I trust her. And I was at a point where I knew what my priorities were and I knew her priorities. I was like, oh my goodness, we're actually a really good mix. But it took me a long time to realize that she is a diamond and she's been there all along. But it took another girl for me to realize that. So long story short,
Have
I'm
you,
like,
have you told her this
I'm
yet?
moving to Ecuador.
Oh, so you've moved
Oh,
to
yes.
Ecuador to chase this girl.
Okay, my main reason, yes, the big reason was I knew I want to live overseas,
Yep.
but I was chasing this girl that I thought, yeah, she could be the one.
Okay.
I'm the guy that flew across the world, literally the furthest country you can go to Ecuador, and spent a month with her. And she was on her trip. She invited me to her trip. Long story short, I'm the guy who went overseas to this girl, and she said no. And
I shouldn't laugh. That's
you
terrible.
can laugh. I'm laughing.
I had,
Listen,
I,
at
had,
the
I had
time,
a
I wasn't
patient.
laughing.
I had a patient tell me that he did the same thing. He was sick of all the women in Australia. He said, "Oh, there's no one in Australia for me. Out of this whole country, there's no one here for him." So he did the same thing. He was going to go and travel through Europe and find himself just the one, the right one. So he went off. He's gone for a couple of years. Eventually, he bumped into this girl at this bar. They locked eyes, and
Yeah.
he just knew from that moment that this was the one. Started talking. She was Australian. To be buggered. Anyway, all of a sudden, she was from the same city where he was from. As they're talking, and they figured out that she actually lived one street back from where he lived,
No.
and they did get married, and they lived happily ever after. So,
Wow.
how amazing is that? So you never know. Funny things happen.
I haven't met many Australians here, especially in my own neighborhood. But listen, I walked out a lot better than I walked in saying that.
Oh, how'd you cope with that? When she
Probably-
said, how did she say no? Did you turn up
listen.
and just throw yourself at her feet? Or did you come in and just be super smooth and, you did some sit-ups or something with your shirt off? Or what was your mating ritual? That then
Just beating my chest and yelling, really.
Yeah, and made her sort of go, nah. How did she break your heart?
The thing is, we've been friends for a long time. We've known each other like 7 years. So
Yeah.
I was so confident things were going to work out because on paper, I knew myself really well. And I had listened to a lot of people that talk about relationships because, anyway, the statistics are not good in marriage and things like that. I thought we were a really good mix. So I went over there. Everything was good. We got really close really quickly, which I was expecting more boundaries and things like that. I traveled with her and her friend to tried to get into Chile. Had a lot of problems because of the COVID problem.
Yeah.
Her friend ended up getting COVID, so she didn't come with us. So I was with this girl for 2 weeks overseas, and everything was fantastic. But I won't go into details. But long story short,
You tell me off air.
I have to tell you off it, just because she's still a good friend and
Yeah,
she is an
that's
amazing
okay.
girl. But she made some silly decisions that hurt me a lot. I have never. Okay, my dad passed away 3 years ago, and I watched him pass away in the hospital, and that was really emotionally hard for me. This situation last year topped it. Like it was.
Oh,
just,
geez.
For me, I
can relate to
Listen,
I can relate to the dad thing. It's the same thing. When my dad passed away, he was
Yep.
only 49. I was really young, in hospital bed, watching him turn everything off, and that was a horrible, horrible day in my life.
Yeah.
And you reckon what happened with this girl was worse?
It was.
Oh, geez.
I can tell you off. I'll tell you off air. But listen, if it wasn't for my faith journey, I'll tell you this now. I remember seeing the bus, I was in tears and everything.
I should stop smiling. I should stop smiling while you're telling me this.
Oh, listen,
This is
I'm
terrible.
smiling to
I'm
the story,
smiling
don't
while
worry.
you're telling me this terrible story that's worse than your father passed away, and I've got a grin on my face. But I'm glad
No,
you
no,
do
listen,
too.
listen.
So that's good.
I do too. But I'm telling you this, it has really shaped me into who I am now. So I'm a big believer that life, my friend always says, life works for you. And I don't believe in coincidences. And as clay, you can only mold clay when it's soft. And God really used me when I was in that soft moment, and he shaped me in a different way. And when I got to Bolivia with this broken heart, I had this deep desire to volunteer. It sounds weird
Yeah.
because I volunteered in Australia before, but I just couldn't shake it. I had this idea of just volunteering. And I asked all these different people to help me. No one helped me. I couldn't find a place to volunteer my skills. So I got off my bum and just randomly emailed a Google search, volunteer in Ecuador. Oh, sorry, volunteer in La Paz in Bolivia. Found this organization called MedFund. Had no idea. The guy who's a general manager, he contacted me back. He speaks great English, have a video call. He didn't know what a podiatry was. I told him what podiatrists do. And long story short, he's like, you know what? I'm going to send you in this village 5 hours away, and no one speaks English, but you're going to be the only one there. And you're going to work with the doctor and the nurse. And you're going to stay on my family. We have this property which is outside of the community in the bush. So it's like a 20-minute hike down into the bush next to a river. Beautiful, beautiful area. But he said, listen, bring your camping stuff because it's a horrible place. Like it's an old...
Well, geez, he sold it well, didn't he? It's a horrible place.
Well, okay, I gave him that word, but he said, listen, it's an old mill, it's run down. Listen, until you walk in, he had to saw open the lock because it's been locked for many, many years. Open the spider webs there. There's no electricity whatsoever. It's just one room. And he said, okay, put your stuff down. Make sure your bags are locked all night because there's tarantulas, there's scorpions, there's garden snakes, and there's rattlesnakes. And I was like, oh, thank you. Fantastic. I'd rather him not tell me, to be honest.
Yeah.
Just don't say anything. But yeah, that set me up for the week. And I loved it. I only stayed one night in that place. I got invited into the community after that. But I loved it. I was like, you know what? Podiatry was feeling a bit, is this right for me? And I'm saying today, like, I don't even know if I'm going to be podiatry all my life. But yeah, I'm a lot more passionate about podiatry now than I was back then. And I was sent out to different communities. Didn't speak the language.
Because I was going to ask you, do you speak Spanish at all?
My Spanish is terrible, and I won't try and prove how.
Oh no, but it's something you're going to keep working on and keep improving on.
Exactly. Listen, I'm in the jungle city called Lago Agrio in Ecuador. No one. I've been here for a week now, and I haven't met one person who speaks English, and I'm not planning to. But it's forcing me. Like today, one of the pastor has some people that the pastor at a local church. He asked me if I would help some people because there's no podiatrist here. No, there's actually no podiatrist here. It's the first place I've actually been to where there is no podiatrist. And actually not the first place, but anyway. And she had an issue. She had actually two different issues. But long story short, it's so hard to ask the questions you want to ask on Google Translator.
Yeah.
Google Translate, I can treat someone ingrown now and all that sort of stuff, no problems, because I can see the problem. I know how to treat it. But when you're getting someone who's got tingling in toes and, it sounded like sciatica issues that's coming from, up at the upper gluteal area and all that sort of stuff, it takes time to get to that conclusion. And I'm just very blessed that I have a personal training background because I'm very confident in my exercise prescription. That has helped me a lot, especially when I go into the jungle and you don't have, like I have some cheap, listen, you got to remember, I've only been doing this for nearly a year, so I don't have sponsorships. Yeah. Hopefully one day, all the podiatrist sponsorships out there, I need prefab orthotics. That would be amazing. I can carry that into the jungle because it's just too hard. I've got real cheap ones I've got in Peru, but I don't have any supports to put into shoes. And some people don't wear shoes in the jungle. So how do you treat someone with plantar fasciitis that it's a biomechanical issue? Anyway, I have all these sort of problems.
So are you doing more biomechanical type work in South America? Or
Man,
are
this
you
is the
doing
thing.
everything? And where do you get your instruments from? And how do you get them sterilized?
Okay. Yeah,
What's the go?
I know.
Just
No, it's a
rinsing them
big
in the
go.
creek is not good enough.
Okay, for the that's a big question. All people have a lot of people ask me that question. So I talked to a dentist in Bolivia when I first started. I said, listen, because he does a lot of this organization I said that sent me into this rural community. They're called MedFund.
Yeah.
They actually organize medical trips with dentists, doctors, nurses, and we all go as a team to different rural communities. So you connect with great people. This guy spoke English and he said to me, listen, Dave, how do you sterilize your instruments? I said, fantastic. I've got no idea. How do I sterilize my instruments? Obviously, I don't have an autoclave. I don't have all that sort of awesome gadgets. I have a set of equipment. And remember, when I started, I didn't have a lot of money. So I only had like one set of the clippers, one set of file, all that sort of stuff. He told me, listen, use this bleach. It's the best thing that you could use. It's like kills like most of your bugs and things like that. I scrubbed that, use alcohol. But I left it in there for 15 minutes and it rusted everything. So that's the trade-off. It's just, you have to be very careful. So that's how I clean things. Is it the best way to clean things? Obviously not. But when I'm in the jungle and I only can carry a certain amount of things, if someone's got, end of the day, what I'm doing is going to be a lot cleaner than what they do. I've heard stories.
I've got to go back through on a
Please.
past episode. I've had another podiatrist I was talking to. I'm pretty sure it was on the podcast. It was somebody else I was talking to, and they put together like care packages, and it's a group of podiatrists from America who come down to South America at different times. I'll see if I can dig up that information, and I will get it to you. Well, at least I can put them in touch with it, and I can't remember which country they go to, but it's in South America somewhere.
Yes. So in Bolivia, like I've had so many awesome experiences. Like I was on the Samaritan's Purse clinic boat with other doctors, and we went to different rural communities along the river. And you go they would come onto the boat and you treat them. That was fine, no problems. I had so many ingrown nails that I had out of my whole sort of career. It was just literally insane. I had so many people, had to give a lot of injections, all that sort of stuff. In Peru, didn't see many ingrown nails, but I had so many. I go into the jungle and people complaining with knee pain, people complaining of foot pain, Achilles issues. And, you watch them, everyone here just has such flexible, like unstable gait, so flexible feet. And, you have a kid who just doesn't wear shoes. And one of the recommendations is, hey guys, listen, does he have shoes? They say, yes. So they get him wearing shoes. That's going to make a big difference at the minimum, to be able to give exercises, to be able to tell them to wear shoes. Sometimes is the best thing that I can do. If I do have some spare plantiers that I've carried with me, I can slip that into a shoe, but it's not custom made. It doesn't have support at the rear foot where he needs it. It's only just a bit of art support.
You can only do so. You can only do what you can do. It's pretty much about it.
That's where the exercise prescription's been coming in great. Like I had a lady complaining of, what was it? She had knee pain and she doesn't wear shoes and she doesn't want to wear shoes. So the best thing I can do is strengthen up, her quads and her glutes to help sort of stabilize that knee a lot better. And just tell her, hey, listen, shoes are going to help you for your problem. Now, you need to know that I don't walk into jungles telling people to wear shoes. I let them do whatever they're used to doing, that's what they need to do. But if someone comes up to me complaining of severe pain and they're limping and, I can see that their foot function has a lot to do with it, then I definitely try and suggest, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. And I reckon anyone listening to this, if I know maybe if they have spare instruments or anything like that, there was some way we could put something together and get it to you wherever you are. So would you then, like, say for example, a care package was sent to you where you are, if there was an address, would you then take that around with you where you go to different places?
Yeah, so at the moment I have left it. Okay, so I'm going into a rural part of the jungle tomorrow. I left my stuff at someone's house.
Yeah.
I have 2 big toolboxes and I have like things like syringes, local anesthetic, scalpels. It's gotten so much better to when I first started. Thank you to all the people who have donated.
Yeah, so people donate money or are they donating stock and things like that to you?
I would take anything.
Yeah.
But when I first started, is people donated money,
Yep.
and I would take that money. So I would go on my first sort of trip and say, "Oh my goodness, I wish I had local anesthetic." So next time I write down, "Need local anesthetic." "Oh my goodness, I wish I had the heel lips." Okay, I'm going to get some heel lips. It has been so hard to locate scalpels, syringes, all that sort of places in Bolivia, Peru. So it's just so hard to find, 15 blade scalpel or a 10 blade. It's been a bit of a challenge. But if someone were to pack a care pack for me, what apart from prefab orthotics, like even things like like the wedges that I can add to things.
Yeah.
You get these adhesive wedges or adhesive heel lips or met domes. Those things come like because I can cut them and manipulate them and create things like that stuff is probably what I need. Like the clippers and the knives and stuff, you can find that anywhere and you can reuse them. But when it comes to like I've had just so many biomechanical issues, to be honest. It's surprised me a lot.
Yeah, well, when I saw your photos on your website, thetravelingpod.com, if people want to go and check it out.
Hey.
When I had a look at your photos on there, a lot of the stuff that you were doing talks, and a lot of the stuff, it looked like it was biomechanical related. You were checking limb length, hip length on people. I saw you fitting some insoles and a couple of other things. So, and that's what made me realize, this is different because normally when you hear people going off to remote areas, it's all high risk ulcers and do you do much of that, or you're not seeing that in South America?
I'm just not listen, whatever.
It's all the cervases. They have good beer down there. So
listen, whatever presents, I just tell people, listen, I'm here to help you from the hip down. I specialize more around the foot, but if you have any issues from the hip down, come and have a chat with me and I'll see what I can do. And a lot of people just coming, with knee problems, I've had people come, like you go into the jungle and someone came to me and complaining of neck problems and stuff. And I'm like, listen, guys, I'm so sorry. I don't specialize in neck. It's a very sensitive area. But I listen to them anyway. And I say to them, listen, in my opinion, which I'm not a professional in this area, sounds like that you're having a nerve problem. You really need to see a physiotherapist. I know there's no physiotherapist here. That's why you're talking to me.
Yeah.
So, from my exercise background, strengthening these muscles, being able to get massage on these muscles is going to help with your posture, blah, 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 blah. So it's really been all round holistic sort of approach where it just hasn't been podiatry stuff.
Is your plan to stay in Ecuador for like extended period of time because you like that particular country, or are you planning to stay there for a short period of time and then just keep going to different countries in South America?
This is good. So this comes on, so my little mission vision is I want to provide podiatry service to communities that can't easily access it. And I also want to demonstrate love, value, and acceptance for vulnerable kids by organizing a pizza challenge event, which I've done in Bolivia, Peru, and here in Ecuador.
Yeah, explain the pizza challenge event. Well, that's all there, because you told me off air, and I thought it was interesting.
Yep. Okay, so the pizza challenge event is basically the backstory is I met up with that girl, and Bolivia. That girl. And I made her some pizza dough. She was at a hostel. I said, listen, I'm going to make 3 big pizzas. I'm going to come to your hostel and I'm going to hand it out to everyone there so we can all eat together. She said, fantastic. Went to the hostel, just said, hey, man, what's your name? And you might say, Jonathan. I say, Jonathan, where are you from? I'm from Israel. Come have pizza with us. Hey, you, hey, you, hey, you. Food brings people together. And they sat down. We all ate together. We had stories, all that sort of stuff. I was having a little nap, and this guy came up to me, Israeli guy, and said, hey, I want to give you my hat. It's a nice hat. And I'm like, why are you giving me a hat? And he goes, man, I was so touched that you don't know me, but you made all this pizza and you're willing to give it to me and have lunch with me, and I want to give you my hat. And I was like, oh, thank you so much. And it really stuck in my mind. I was like, you know what? It was just a piece of pizza, but it really impacted him. So I was like, who can I make pizza for that would also be impacted? And then I was like, oh, I'm going to cook for an orphanage. And then just that idea rolled. I got connected with the right people. Listen, I won't go into the full story because I know time wise,
No, 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 that's all right.
but I had I was in that first community in Bolivia where I told you where I was 5 hours away. No one spoke English or anything like that. The guy who drove me there from MedFund, I told him my idea. I said, "Hey, I want to make pizzas for orphans," and he said, "Well, listen, actually, sounds a good idea, but change it instead of orphans. Why don't you do it for kids on the street? Because kids on the street miss out on so much resources."
It's true.
And I was like, "Oh, didn't think about it." I said, "Cool, I'll do it for them." Within a couple of hours, I got random text messages on my WhatsApp because he must have put it on his social media. And I didn't realize how connected he was. So I got messages saying, "Hey, I want you to use my restaurant for your pizza challenge." And I was like, "What the hell is the pizza challenge?" And I had someone else message me like, "Hey, I want to get involved with your pizza challenge. Hey, I want to get involved with your pizza challenge." And I had all these people messaging me, and it made me realize that this guy's made up the pizza. He's named the event the pizza challenge. So forever now, it's called the pizza challenge.
So,
Because it
what's
is the pizza
involved in the
challenge.
pizza? Is there a competition?
Okay.
People making the pizzas, or is it just you making the pizza and the challenge is to make so many?
Yeah. Well, okay, it has developed a lot since in Bolivia. I made 30 kilos of dough by myself. It was horrible. It took me 5 hours nonstop, rolling it with my hands. It was hard.
Yeah,
I made the sauce all by myself because I didn't realize it was Mother's Day when I did all this. I just didn't realize, didn't connect. So I had no help whatsoever. But we made from two restaurants in Bolivia, we made 120 pizzas for this event. And we had activities for the kids where they had like art, they had song and dance, they had theater. We had a group of psychologists at the event to come and talk to the kids and the family. We had a doctor that walk around and just check if everyone's okay. And it was a really cool event. Um, so when I got to Peru, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to go to an orphanage because our biggest problem was getting kids to the event is actually quite hard. As good as you can be with connecting and getting people to talk to kids on the street, I only got about 40 something kids there. I wanted 100 kids. I
yeah.
catered for 100. We didn't get those numbers. So in Peru, I was like, you know what? I want to go to an orphanage and create a big event. And we did that. So we made 30 kilos of dough. We organized where we're going to make it, and we busted out about 100 pizzas. We had face painting, we had volleyball, we had football, we had music, we had. It was just such a great day. Everything just lined up perfectly, and I walked away thinking, I want to keep doing this. And just I saw a kid eat salami for the first time in his 12 years of his life, and I was just like, yes.
Yeah, well, that's life changing. Salami is,
But
yeah. So good salami is life changing.
listen, I just see these beautiful kids with a smile on their face. But behind those smiles, like the guy was telling me, he's an American guy who started this orphanage, and he's telling me some horrible stories. Some of these kids, like he said, there's one kid here who parents tried to burn him, like like burn them alive, sort of
Yeah,
thing. And if it wasn't for their neighbors, they wouldn't be there today. And you get these stories of these kids that have just had such traumatic upbringings and traumatic events. And you look, listen, this pizza challenge doesn't change anyone's lives, um, but it definitely makes an impact. I feel like in their life, to see them just let down their guard for a day, have fun, socialize with other kids because we had other orphanages together. It was just, it was really beautiful to see them just have that day about them, making them feel special. And yeah, so that's the two things I want to do. Every country asked me what I want to do. So my plan, no plan, but my plan
yeah. Your
is
plan with no plan. Yeah,
is to go to Colombia, Venezuela, and then maybe all the different countries all the way up to Mexico. So that was like, 2 years in itself. If I can, if I follow that plan. But yeah, so I'm going to go to Colombia next. I'm going to connect with some orphanages to create the pizza challenge. I'm going to connect with some local churches so I can go into the jungle area and provide podiatry service. I'm going to, like I did here in Quito in Ecuador. I volunteered at an orphanage, at a disability center, just being able to help out wherever I can. So that's what I want to keep doing. And it's an adventure. You meet beautiful people along the way.
okay. I have a question for you.
Please.
How safe is it? Like, because you
Ooh.
see movies of South America and some area, and like when you're watching documentaries in certain places, especially the Food Channel, always looks fantastic.
Yeah.
You go, I want to go there, I want to travel there. But then you see movies on those particular countries, and it's always drug deals
Yep.
and all the
Yep.
criminal element of it. So how is it from your point of view as someone who's just traveling through? Does it feel safe?
Listen, I have never felt unsafe. I was in actually I was at a bus bay probably 2 weeks ago, and this is probably the only time where I didn't. It's not like I didn't feel safe, but I knew that something was going on.
Yeah.
I was at a bus bay, and this guy kept looking at me. I'm very aware of my surroundings. This guy just kept staring at me, and he kept moving closer, but kept looking at me. And the girl that I was with said, "Hey, listen, can we move over there?" And I moved over there. I said, "You were feeling that as well?" And she goes, "Yeah." And I went to get on the bus, and they were following us. And I said,
Yeah.
"You guys get on first." And they're like, "No, no, you go on first." And we pushed them on first, and then we caught another bus. Apart from that situation, I have felt so safe.
But that can happen. That can happen anywhere. Like I was in Denver, Colorado, and exactly the same thing happened to me. Just cutting through back street, and next minute there's some guy just right on my tail. And
Yep.
at some point, I eventually just had to turn around and confront him and go, "What the?" And because
So many people do
you
that.
just knew there was someone there, and I could hear him getting closer and closer, and I just went, "Yeah, I'm not going to get stabbed in the back here. I'd rather get stabbed in the front." So I just turned and said, what are you doing?" And all of a sudden they were just like, and lucky there were other people around. So because I knew where I had to go after that, there wasn't going to be anyone around. So I thought if I don't confront him now,
You're a smart man. Yeah, yeah.
while there's people around, at least if he stabs me, maybe someone will help me. But if he stabs me around the corner, I'm buggered.
Listen, it's not something to laugh about. But no, listen, that not many people turn around and be like, "What are you doing? You're gonna stab me now."
But I think it's true. It doesn't matter where you go, whether it's in areas where you hear bad reports. Wouldn't matter where it's in Australia. There's always a bad element around somewhere.
Listen, this is the thing is, I traveled Pakistan by myself for 4 weeks, and I felt super safe there. But if you're a woman traveling in Pakistan, it'd be a different story. And in
Yeah,
South America, like I'm I'm not a I'm not like a naturally big guy, but here in South America, I'm a bit above the average. So it's not like I'm walking around like a bag of lollies. Like
yeah.
everyone,
You're a
like,
unit.
no, no. But in my head, I'm a unit.
Yeah,
No, I suppose that doesn't really matter. If someone's gonna attack you, they're gonna attack you. But I felt super safe. I haven't had a problem. But I do have that personality where if you say to me, "Dave, do not go to this area. Whatever you do, do not go to this area." I'm like, I sort of want to prove you wrong, Doug. You're not going to go to this area just because you said that.
yeah.
Um, I walk the streets at night. Everyone says don't do that. Um, but yeah, I know. It's just this. I walk the streets at night and I see a lady with a baby and a grandma and a grandfather. I'm like, which one is going to stab me here? Like,
Yeah.
there's people around. I just feel like if you do have good common sense, it's like, okay, that dark alleyway, no one's around. It's at night. Doesn't seem good. I'm not going to go that way. I'm going to go this way where there's more people. Like it's sort of you make these decisions.
Yeah, I think that's what you said. It's common sense. Is just be safe. But it's good that, like, with the traveling that you're doing so far, it's all been positive experiences with everything you've done. The people you've helped, it's all been positive experiences. And so, what's the time frame going from Ecuador now to the next place? How much longer are you gonna stay there?
So I said, I don't even know where I'm going in Colombia. To be 100% honest, I have no idea. So I don't even know the time frame. I know nothing. I'm just going to.
So
I'm
how
guessing
do you
it's the
survive
same.
at the moment? Like yourself, obviously.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. How do you
Yeah.
finance yourself, like
Yep.
your food, your accommodation, your own healthcare,
Yep.
looking after yourself? How do you do that?
And everyone asks me this question. I don't know. Now, listen, God has put amazing people in my world. When I was in Bolivia for 6 months, 6 months in Bolivia, I only paid accommodations for 3 nights. And that's because I had to when I was traveling with this organization. People just said, "Hey," like I was at a local church, "Hey, where are you staying? When you don't have somewhere to stay, come stay with me." And I would just move to home to home to home.
Okay.
So that accommodation was has always sort of been covered. Like in Peru, I worked at a hostel, so I didn't have to pay for accommodation. I just worked there for 4 hours per day for 5 days. So you find little ways to sort of cut corners. At the moment, I told the pastor that I want to volunteer in the jungle. He said, yes, come. He's organized accommodation for me. I'm not paying for this room that I'm in right now. The family that I'm staying with, they have cooked for me for my lunch. The only thing I pay for is like dinner or my equipment.
How do you go
And
with like with eating and drinking water? Have you
yeah,
had the shits a few
no,
times? No.
no. Okay. So when I've traveled previously, I have been
So
sick every
me
time.
saying having the shits was probably not the right way. Have you suffered from diarrhea much?
Have you had intestinal problems?
Yeah. Have your bowels been acting up?
No, I've been really good. Previous times, yes, I've gone sick every time. Everywhere I've gone sick. As soon as I came to Ecuador last Christmas, 2021, I started drinking the water because I knew I'm here long term.
Yeah.
And I didn't have a problem. So everywhere I go, I drink tap water, except when locals are like, if you ask 5 locals for their opinion and all 5 of them say, do not drink the tap water, then I won't. But then,
That's
yeah,
usually a good
because
sign. If they tell you not to
because,
drink it, then don't drink it.
yeah, but this is the thing is you get some precious local people as well who don't drink the tap water because like they're the type of people who won't eat the street food either.
Yeah.
Well, I eat all the street food. It looks like a dodgy place, but the food is amazing. So yeah, I haven't had any problems. I drink all the water, I eat all the food. When I've been into the jungle, I've tried some really different types of food.
That would be
I've got some
interesting.
really cool photos. It's been very interesting. But
What's the weirdest thing you've eaten?
oh, to be honest, it sounds weird, but like it doesn't sound weird. But if I showed you this photo of this fish that I ate, literally like when you go to Australia and order a fish, you get this nice fillet with no bones or
Yeah.
anything. When you go into a country like this, you get like a fish that you caught is like on your plate. But I got given this fish that looked like a monster. Like it took me by surprise. Like this family have been just gracefully just have made me this awesome food. And this fish is staring at me, this massive black fish with like look like a monster. And I'm like, how do I eat this? Listen, if it wasn't for that Ecuadorian girl, because she is like another level when she eats. So she's taught me I eat the eyes of the fish, I eat the brain of the fish, I eat every part of the fish now. I'm all good. Like I'm I can do it.
What's the eye like? I take it to be a
Before,
bit chewy.
um, there's a part, very small part. It's like a little rock. You can't eat that. It's super hard. But everything
Yeah.
else is like soft and not super chewy. Like I ate, I think it was the ankle or the knee of a cow. It's all the cartilage and all the fluid. It tastes like jelly. It's very different. But listen, to answer your question, because I feel like a lot of people that would be listening be say, how is this being funded? Everyone asks me the same thing. Every time I do the pizza challenge, like a big event, or if I'm going into the jungle for a couple of weeks or however, I put some previous photos up on Instagram, Facebook, and say, hey guys, this is my vision, this is what I'm doing. If you want to support it, here's my website. I've been very blessed. There's like just people that have just opened their arms, and I had a guy who I talked to in my hostel, American guy, and he's like, here's $100 for what you want to do.
Yeah.
People just transferred me money. It's been amazing. So, they pay, let's say I'm fundraising, I need $700 to run the pizza challenge. If I get $900, well, that extra $200 goes towards my equipment for the next project.
It makes
And so
sense.
anything to do with my volunteer work. So it cost me $20 to get from the city to the jungle. So that covers my cost for the transport. I don't go to fancy restaurant or anything like that. I love cooking, so I generally cook. So anything to do with the volunteer stuff, I will be equipment, be transport, be all that sort of stuff. Presents for the kids, coloring in books, pencils. That comes out of my donation. I've got a separate account for that. At the moment, it's very low, so it's not like I'm going around buying all these stuff for the kids and things like that. I've just got just enough to get me through. When it comes to, let's say you're here with me, Tyson, and you and I want to go to the movies or we want to go to dinner,
Yeah.
that comes out of my own personal money. At the moment, I'm eating into my savings, which is not sufficient. I've just started trying to do an online business, and this online business, I've made a website for Tech Fit Day, and basically I'm trying so I've done online sort of personal training.
Yeah.
So I used to be a personal trainer. So I've made a program for someone. I'm sort of monitoring them. So that's where I've got a little bit of income from there. But it's generally like, hopefully in the future, if I start talking at, universities or things like that, hopefully that they can provide me with some sort of, hey, I'm going to speak to students. Can you give me some sort of, I don't know, present, or I don't know, sponsor me or
Cash.
something.
Give me some cash.
Give me some cash. Give me
cash.
something.
Yeah, or sponsor. Well, I reckon from this podcast, I hope that getting this podcast out, piles of people, 1,000 people will listen to it, and people will go to your website, thetravelingpod.com, 1L, and donate some money towards what you're doing. I think if everybody chips in. I'd love for you to give me some feedback to find out where the podiatrists that listen to this podcast tied asses and kept all the money to themselves, or did they go onto your website, see your bank account details there, and just transfer some money in, whether it's $20, $50, $100, just do something.
All of that stuff, if you transfer me money through my website, that all goes to my volunteer stuff. So that's 100%. If you go onto my website and you see where I upload blogs, every month I put a money tracker. So I've got an Excel spreadsheet and say, this is how much I came into my sponsors. Like, this is how much I raised. This is how much I've spent. And I put that up so everyone can see where their money's going, which I think is super important, because I feel like I want to be as very transparent as I can, but I don't touch that. So if a podiatrist puts in $200 into that website, I don't touch that unless that's a volunteer thing. I want to make some smart decisions business-wise. I want to start myself. I don't want to have to rely on that, if that makes sense. I want to be able to go on a holiday for a month and not volunteer, go to the beach for a month, but I want to have money to be able to do that. So that's my goal, to be self-sufficient, because I want to keep doing this long term.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great
one day
idea.
go in the world.
And I have a friend who, Lee Hoffman, he has a podcast called We Travel There podcast. He's in Nashville, Tennessee. So I'm going to put you in touch with him, because I reckon getting you on his podcast as well, because it's a travel podcast, and just with what you're doing, could be quite interesting. And like I said, the more people that know what you're doing, then the more chance you've got of people helping you sort of achieve it.
Listen, how can I say? God has literally provided the right people in my world. Doors have opened for me. This is why I feel like what I'm doing is good for me, because people just open their arms. Opportunities have just come. Like, you contacting me. I didn't tell you this too. I'm in an application process for a Christian organization in America. I actually got a meeting on this Monday. And if they do accept me and they feel like I are within what they're looking for, they're going to help fundraise for me as well. So they'll help fundraise for my cause, what I'm doing, and also for me personally, which will help me a lot. But as I said, if that doesn't work out, God's put the right people in my world to keep this sustainable. So I'm a super chilled out guy. This stuff doesn't really worry me at all.
That's the way to be.
Keep moving along.
You're more chilled out than that Ecuadorian dog in the background who's barking.
Can you hear that?
I could hear that.
Okay.
No, that's all right. I got one final question for you before we wrap up.
Yeah.
Because this has been a lot of fun. We can keep talking if you want, but do you have one final question?
Please.
Normally, I say to people, you're sitting there at a bus stop, someone comes, another podiatrist sits next to you and says, "Hey, I've got this question." So, for you though, you're sitting there on a log in the jungle, just by yourself. All of a sudden, this podiatrist comes wandering past with his backpack and says, "You're Dave, you're the traveling pod. What is one piece of career advice or life advice that you would give me that you think is super important?"
I'd tell you to sit in the log next to me, but I would definitely take a seat. I definitely encourage you to investigate yourself a lot, where I know that there's ideas and there's deep desires that you personally have that you've probably pushed aside for a long time. And rightfully so, people have families, people have, have made lifestyles for themselves that now they have to work a certain amount to be able to cover those lifestyles. But I do encourage you to look deeply into yourself and see what desires do I have, what ideas do I have, because just because you're a podiatrist, someone says, Dave, what do you do? I said, well, my job is a podiatrist. I'm not a podiatrist. And that sounds really silly to you, but I'm not living a label as I'm just a podiatrist. No, there's a lot more to Dave than just a podiatrist. I work as a podiatrist. And someone wise said, don't live up to the labels that people give you, because that will box you into you just being that. And once you believe that, that's what you believe is what sort of comes true.
Yeah.
Have you ever thought why the lion is the king of the jungle? Everyone's like, it is what it is. Well, it's not the fastest, it's not the strongest, it's not the most agile, it's not the smartest. It is because it looks at the elephant and doesn't see a giant, it sees lunch. And its self-belief system says that I'm the king of the jungle. The self-belief system says, I got this. And I feel like if we just really believe in ourselves, we can do a lot more than what we box ourselves in to be. So that's what I'd say, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I reckon they'd say, so Dave, where are you staying tonight? Because I wouldn't mind taking you out for dinner and talking to you more and just picking your brain on your philosophies in life. So this has been a lot of fun. I want to thank you for coming on the podcast, and I would love to get you back on at some stage to talk about maybe in 6 months where you've gone